So today we're going to be focusing on Jekyll and Hyde. This session is here to complement your lessons with your teachers and not in any way to replace them. Now, paper 1, you will have the Shakespeare question first, and then you have the pre-19th century novel. We're going to focus on Jekyll and Hyde. So your question will look something like this. You will get an extract from the novel, a question at the bottom, and you will be asked to link it to the rest of the text. So, starting with this extract, explore how Stevenson uses settings to explore the theme of man's duality. So before we have even started looking at the extract, we know that we're looking specifically at setting, but also at man's duality. So we're looking throughout the extract for anything that is setting based, but also anything that creates contrast, conflict, opposites. So it chanced on one of these rambles that their way led them down a by street in a busy quarter of London. The street was small and what is called quiet, but it drove a thriving trade. So it's quiet, but it has a thriving trade. The inhabitants were all doing well, it seemed, and all emulously hoping to do better still, and laying out the surplus of their grains in coquetry, so that the shop front stood along that thoroughfare with an air of invitation, like rows of smiling saleswomen. Even on Sunday, when it veiled its more florid charms and lay comparatively empty of passage, the street shone out in contrast to its dingy neighbourhood like a fire in a forest. So again, you have that contrast. And with its freshly painted shutters, well-polished brasses, and general cleanliness and gaiety of note, instantly caught and pleased the eye of the passenger. 2 doors from one corner on the left hand going east, the line was broken by the entry of a court, so something that disrupts it. And just at that point, a certain sinister block of building thrust forward its gable. So a sinister block of building thrust forward its gable on the street. It was 2 stories high, showed no window, nothing but a door on the lower story and a blind forehead of discoloured wall on the upper, and bore in every feature the marks of prolonged and sordid negligence. The door, which was equipped with neither bell nor knocker, was blistered and disdained. So the door, which should be an entrance, which should be something that welcomes people, has no knocker, has no doorbell. Tramps slouched into the recess and struck matches on the panels. Children kept shop upon the steps. The schoolboy had tried his knife on the mouldings, and for close on a generation no one had appeared to drive away these random visitors or to repair their ravages. Throughout there we have those contrasting quotations. What you also have is a direct contrast between the first paragraph and the second paragraph. So you have the description in the first paragraph of the nice place that is cared, that has florid charms, that is like the smiling saleswoman, that pleased the eye of the passenger, compared to the discoloured wall, no window, no attempt to repair their ravages. So you have the contrast between the paragraphs as well as within the paragraphs. That contrast links to the idea of man's duality, because you have the idea that within everyone there are the 2 sides. So Stevenson here is using that setting to show us that duality exists everywhere, that contrast exists everywhere. What we then need to do is look at the rest of the text and figure out where else we could identify settings that show us that contrast. And there are 3 key chapters in Jekyll and Hyde where you can look at the setting. So within chapter 7, which is Incident at the Window, we have the idea of premature twilight, the idea that twilight is coming early and that twilight is that mix of day and night, links to that idea of duality. You have chapter 8, The Last Night, where it is a wild, cold, seasonable night. So the idea of the weather reflecting that mood, that wildness, that untamed nature of man. And in chapter 4, the Carew murder, where we have the street being brilliantly lit by moonlight, brings in the idea that there is a clarity of sight, but it also intermingles with the idea of the moonlight and lunacy. So, starting with the extract, explore how Stevenson uses settings to explore the theme of man's duality. If we accept that that is our key theme, but that we are looking for quotations about setting to prove that. So, first and foremost, shone out in contrast to its dingy neighbourhood. So with this quotation, you have the idea of something positive within a negative. You have that idea of the good within the bad and the two sides of London. If we then also look at the sinister block of building thrust forward, so you have again this idea of something negative pushing through the positive. Premature twilight. And then lit by moonlight. So here we have 4 quotations, 2 from the extract, 2 from the rest of the novel, all of which link to the idea of duality, all of which link to the idea of a combination of things working together. So all of that shows man's duality. So Stevenson uses the settings within the novel to further strengthen and exemplify his ideas about duality, in the same way that the novel explores the two sides to man. Stevenson uses settings such as night and day, or Soho and Cavendish Square, to show that there are and should be two sides to everything. So what we've got here, therefore, is Stevenson showing us that throughout the text, he places things side by side to show us that there are two sides to everything and that those two sides should live together. Using this thesis statement, you can now write your own introduction, making sure that you hit all of those assessment objectives.